This evening, January 12, 2023. All right. We need anything special to start?
No, work sessions are pretty...
Okay, work sessions are pretty informal. We'll talk about that. So we wanted to start, first of all, by acknowledging this document that many of you have gotten. This is from our last meeting. This is something that Vice Chair Ward and Ms. Saylor put together, Director Saylor put together. This is not our priorities per se, but this is our priorities as we see them in the meeting schedules. We can't really refer to it as a priority document, but this is our meeting schedule, and this is how we come up with the specific items that we have on our work sessions and on our meetings. You would have seen previously on that we'd said that the January work session was to brainstorm certified local government grant ideas. I had a discussion both with Ms. Saylor as well as clerk by you about the fact that we are not going for a CLG grant this year specifically, but we'd like to talk about what we believe is our position in the commission as it relates to grant ideas and supporting others. We're not ready to go deep into the calendar for grants yet. That'll be at a future meeting because, again, we're not soliciting a specific grant, but we're in a support role. We do need to discuss tonight the public noticing for HP award nominations. Pick a time when that will be, and I'll need some support and help there because I haven't done that before. And then the portion on here about continuing work on historic overlay was really just a discussion that Vice Chair Ward and I had about the fact that we really want to keep it on the calendar, and it's something we want to discuss. It's not something we're ready to go into tonight specifically, but we want to discuss it just briefly and talk about the importance of continuing that work over the course of our year, and it's one of the things that we're chartered to. One of the things that's cool about this document, again, which I'll reference and was at the last meeting and it's been given out a few times before, is that it starts with our responsibilities from both as mandated by City Council and also our responsibilities as being tied to the state, and the state acted access to act in a capacity as a historical commission. You have the business we talked about, but then the priorities, which specifically says for this work session that everything we're doing is to enhance and educate on historic preservation. So that's the point for this particular meeting, which we're having right now.
Right.
Questions or thoughts?
Well, I thought we have to make a presentation to City Council.
We will have to make a presentation
on the 23rd?
Yeah, on the 23rd.
Okay, the 23rd of this month.
And so that presentation to City Council will have material which SACA could provide at a later time, which will basically take the priorities. As you'll see, we can't vote on the priorities, but we'll be able to discuss and vote on the priorities in the actual meeting.
But we can develop those during the work session.
Can we, Chris? We can look at those priorities that are in the packet and discuss them and then vote on them in the session. Is that correct?
That's what I thought the purpose of the work session was going to be.
So I have here the work session packet is just the single page with three topics.
But that should have had priorities in it.
And I may have misspoken because I knew that we couldn't vote on anything in the session, but we could at least discuss it. So can we actually add to the work session or not? Or do we have to discuss it and vote on it in the meeting?
We can't stray from these topics that have been publicly noticed as what we're going to be talking about.
Then we'll have a short work session, and when we go into the actual meeting, we can go through the materials already been carried over from last year into this year for our priorities. And it's now it'll be titled 2023. They're similar to last year, and we can look at those and make sure that's what we want it to be, and then vote on it. Now we can have that discussion. Is that correct in the actual meeting?
So are you referring to the informational items and reports, the priorities, and then the meeting and work session schedules?
I'm referring to which I guess we can't talk about that yet, but I'm referring to when we get to the actual meeting, there's a Historic Preservation Commission Resolution 2023.001, which was filled out using last year's resolutions, and we were going to look at that and then vote on that and agree that those would be what we present to council. Mm-hmm. But we can't discuss that now, it sounds like.
Correct, because it's not part of a work session topic. So that'll have to wait till the regular meeting.
So we'll have a short work session, and then we can go into, when we go into the meeting, I want to be clear, we can go through and read off these resolutions and agree to them and vote on them. Is that correct? so we can still accomplish it in the regular meeting.
Well, it's just that we have to present to city council on the 23rd, and we have to present our resolutions. And my understanding was the work session was to develop the priorities to be presented to council, and then we would vote for them at the meeting, because we have to go before city council on the 23rd. We're not going to meet before then. This is it.
And my understanding, probably wrongfully so, was that we could discuss this in the actual meeting and then vote on it. Or make
Well, we
changes.
can,
Or make
but
changes.
why have a work session if we're not going to do work?
Because the work session was going to be to talk specifically just about grant ideas, because this was originally on here, talk about public noticing of the award nominations as well, and then bring some importance to just at least talking about the historic overlays being something we
Okay.
talk in the future. So short meeting. I'm learning, so bear with me.
I know, but the person who's going before city council would be, yeah.
Right.
So that's why we need to go before city council and be prepared.
Correct.
So, and this is simply suggestions of things. I don't understand why that got lost, but that's okay. It's done.
Maybe
Can't
rookie
undo
mistake.
it.
Maybe rookie mistake. So, but we can discuss it during the actual meeting, correct?
That is correct.
We'll do that. So, all right, so wanted to talk about in very general terms, we had a discussion a little bit about grants. One of the responsibilities on here was to brainstorm certified local government grant ideas. It's one of the things that's laid out as well in our responsibilities as the commission. But I think that we had a discussion last year where we discussed that we did a CLG grant last year, and that was about all the energy that I think we could expend towards a CLG grant, and we decided not to apply for that grant this year, which we would have had to do way back in September, October. So September, October of this year, if we decide as a commission that we wanted to be involved in actually doing a grant that we would execute, we would propose something and make sure that we go before city council on it, make sure that we're not expending funds or anything else without approval, make sure everybody's on the same page, and we're not at that point now. What I did want to talk about and just have a discussion is this whole idea around grants and us being a supportive agency, and at some point having perhaps a grant calendar or something that we would have online, so that when you have someone like Zudy's, Brown and Hawkins, St. Peter's, Rotary, or whoever, they would have some resources. We could help them research grants. We could potentially help them write a grant, but it would not be coming from the commission itself. It would be coming from those individuals. However, one of our responsibilities is basically to help identify structures that need assistance and to provide expertise. And so that is why I thought that the grants was appropriate and for us to do that. But the actual work of the commissioners that we have here and the 5 of us to take on other projects a little onerous for this year. So I see it as more of a consultative role. And I believe that we can discuss some specific things in this work session, such as St. Peter's, which we talked about, or the Rotary one. Can you or can you not talk about that? I know I saw that email traffic earlier today. We can't vote on anything, but can we have a general discussion?
Does it apply to the general grant discussion?
Yeah,
It applies
I
to
think
general
it
grant
does.
discussion, yes. So we wouldn't be making any votes, we wouldn't be making a recommendation, and that's something we've talked about in the past, is us lending our expertise or our support to saying, we think that this is a good idea, because part of our role is to identify something, and then to say, we can help you with the grant or whatever, but we think that this is a building worth
Well, I can give you-
supporting, or a project we're supporting.
Well, I can give you an example. When we did a grant, we did a KMTA grant with Zudy's, and I think this is what you were thinking about with St. Peter's, was I assisted Judy and Jan Ordner to make the grant application. And so, but she literally wrote it, and I edited and assisted. And I really think that that's a good role for us, given the numerous buildings and entities in town that we can assist, but I don't see where we can take it on 100%. Are you thinking the same way, Art?
Well,
I know, because you've been working with St. Peter's.
well, I've talked to Charles twice, and that in my area, my thinking is it's great, And what I'm used to doing is to do the bulk of the work and then have them edit, review, change, then I revise. And so it's, but somebody has to take on the bulk of the work. Right?
Well, I was thinking if we had a grant library and a template, like I say, what happens with Zudi's now, if they want to apply for future grants, they have a template. And it's simply changing the numbers, and probably would be something where we could get a copy. I think I might even have a copy somewhere, but I can ask Judy and Jan to get a copy for St. Peter's, because if you're talking about KMTA, it's the same grant.
Sue, I think to try to answer your question better would be, it depends on the people. Myself, I'm used to doing the work. I'm very comfortable in doing the work and having others review, and we
Right.
rework and rework. It's,
I guess what we have to discuss is where the work stops. So at the point where you provide the work, somebody has to sign off on it. So you have to have an entity that'll sign off on it, and we'll make sure that this isn't a City of Seward thing. This is a St. Peter's or a Zudi's or whoever. They're responsible for all the grant reporting
Well, and
requirements
the
and
grant
everything.
requirements then are dictated by KMTA.
I think it stops when it's signed off by
Right,
by the
that's
owner.
exactly right.
By the owner.
That's what I was, when you've met the requirements of the grant and the submittal date, it's due.
I wonder how we would handle things like, to me, it just thinking out loud here, it would probably depend on the person, because say you have somebody that really wants to do something, but they're not very computer savvy, or maybe they don't even have a computer. What if you have somebody that is not going to be capable of doing the bulk of the work? Even if we give them all the information, we may end up with some people like that could use more help with it. And so I guess the question is, are we willing to do that? But in general, say, try to get people to take it on, and we will assist, but be willing to do the work if needed to help somebody who cannot do it.
That's what you were saying, essentially, it really depends on who we're working with. Some people might be pretty grant savvy. I know somebody like Iris Darling has written numerous grants. Tanya, you've written numerous grants. So that would be very little input by us if we were to funnel a grant to them. But then St. Peter's has not done it, so they might need a little bit. Zudi's was sort of in the middle. I did part of it, told her what to write, but she did the bulk of the writing.
So should there be, one thing we could discuss is having an actual process for which people would come to us and say, I'd like some help. We could certainly do some noticing or something and say, if you're interested, because it's part of our role, feel free to approach us, but our capability depends on what you're asking, and have some type of a process.
And we probably, and this is one of the things I was thinking, is we probably need a grant schedule. So, if somebody comes to us 2 weeks before a grant is due, we need to have the available grants and when the grants are due out, to people, because I don't want somebody to come and say, I really want to try for this grant, but it's due in 2 days. That's not really realistic. So perhaps develop a grant, and I've always wanted a grant library or kind of a grant schedule. Who are the granting entities, what grants are available, how much are the grants, and when are they due? And probably come up with a yearly sort of schedule.
Here's a question, the procedural schedule is, because of Public Meetings Act or anything else, how informal does it have to be, or does somebody have to come here and present something to us and ask us? Do they have to send us formal correspondence? That's something we gotta figure out. Or how does that process work if we choose to take it on as not as a commission, because we're not writing a commission grant, but if we're gonna be providing expertise, how do they reach out to us? Do we do something on the website that says click here, send us a message, and it goes through the clerk? I don't know there's no precedent for it.
You might have to explore that. When I worked with
To that, or?
When I worked with a passenger depot, I did it as an individual. I wasn't a member of the commission. I know the ordiners fairly well, and I offered to help because they were looking at some rot under the building, and they were very concerned about that. So I said I'd help. But I did that as a private citizen with some grant background. If this is going to be something more formal, then yeah, we've got to go with the Open Meetings Act, and we have to follow the city ordinances and things like that. But it'd be real nice if we could make that information available to people. I don't know, people don't even know where to look for the information. So even if we just became sort of, again, I've always wanted a grant library where, you know, even if all we had was a folder that said KMTA, the grant is, this is what you can do, this is when the grant's due.
Maybe we could develop a checklist, like if you want to do a
Yeah,
grant.
checklist is a good idea.
Here's a checklist of some things so you can go down this, and on that checklist, it could be links, like contact HPC, goes to an email.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say, the other thing is what you're discovering now is if you're applying for like a KMTA grant, you have to find a sponsor.
Not necessarily, it depends on the type of grant.
Because that Zudi's, you know, because they were a business, then they had to be sponsored.
Some of these.
And so they're different, but, you know, they have to be sponsored by tax exempt, yeah.
And we
Tax
can't do
exempt.
that
Because
as
I
a
know
commission.
Judy's, I think ultimately the Moose Pass Libraries, but she came to us, but we couldn't do it because we were city commission. I think they tried Resurrection Bay Historic Society, but they were a little leery of, you know, backing someone because then they're responsible for the money. You know, if the grant folds, then RBHS would have been responsible for the money. So they were a little leery. So there are some other things that you have to be aware of in terms of the grant rules.
So we could be a facilitator to maybe help put people together if we could help them build a case.
Yeah.
That then they could take to somebody else.
Match somebody to a grant. When is it due? Here's what you need to put in it. Here's the catchwords. Grants have catchwords. You know, they have sentences you put in there that get you money.
Guys, here's one thing in our charge here, Seward Historical Structures and Sites.
What page are you on?
Let's see.
I'm assuming it's in the,
Yeah, it's
That's
part
in the actual
of,
packet.
yeah.
part of our responsibility. This is,
Historic Preservation Commission, Article 4.
Look at the state or at the,
yeah.
And I think, yeah, those are real important. That's why priority, these are our charge. This is what we're
But
supposed to do.
this is, this may help us identify the most endangered historical properties in Seward. Okay? And this, the way I read it, this is our charge.
Yes, absolutely.
So this may,
powers and duties.
This may-
Number,
provide us a lead in.
yeah, number 2. Are you looking at number 2 on powers and duties?
Well, this is not, here it is.
That's all right, just keep going.
It's in the resolution.
Yeah, it's both in this year's and last year's, it's the same, it's identical.
Yeah, right there.
And I think part of that, Art, goes back to the educating people. That's one of the things that I think last year we didn't do a good job at, educating city council, educating the public, what our role is. And we should be consulted if a historic building is involved. That was part of our charge by the state.
Sue and I don't know how we get there, but this is, to me, the way I read this, identify. It's our
Yeah,
role.
yeah, exactly. I don't disagree with that at all.
So what we need, so Chris, the question would be, if we as a commission have a work session and we pull Seward properties and we identify some of these properties that should be protected, whatever it should be, how do we go about then creating a formal process to contact these people, to tell them what we can do to help them with grants, et cetera? Do we need to go through the city? Is one of us allowed to to contact them? That's the question. What's a formal process? So we know that we have a charge to do it, but how do we do it?
I mean, and a classic example was Jesse Lee. We were never really involved in the Jesse Lee home, which was probably the most endangered building in the state. Yet we were never involved, and we're the Historic Preservation Commission. Not that, yeah, I mean, I'm just stating, I think that's a fact.
Yeah.
Now we are looking at St. Peter's, that has some serious structural issues, and we need to be involved in that to save that building.
That just goes back to the top bullet, and that same thing that says review local projects and recommendations about the effect on properties identified in the local historic preservation inventory. I mean, if part of our charter, or what we're supposed to do is reviewing, there needs to be some kind of process like, well, how do we know what we're supposed to even review? Usually that's collaborating with other parts of, the city government that are dealing with those kind of things that need to be reviewed. So it just, yeah.
Art, what's your
part of
experience?
the process.
Thank you. You mentioned that you're used to doing the majority of the work. What's your experience in writing grants or procedures? Something you'd be interested in helping to write a procedure?
We could. I hadn't thought about it, but somehow we could draft a procedure.
Okay.
Yeah, and then review and review and review.
We need page numbers on these things.
When you say procedure, you're talking about like the checklist for people to go through for this process?
Well, I think there's got to be a process of, if somebody wants a grant, how do they get to us and
Yeah.
that?
I think Sue's idea, aside from the procedure of having a schedule, is.
Well, we should be aware.
That should be number one.
Right, and there's a lot of grant out there, and putting it together so that we actually, because we have it, I'll tell you what happens, it comes up on the agenda all the time. And we, assess grant opportunities, and we never quite get to it, we don't know when the next grant opportunity is, and you've got to start a grant 6 months before the due date, if it's a large grant. A grant, and so, to me, that's step one, is to come up with what grants are out there that would be reasonable to assess.
I'm willing to help work on that if Commissioner Lassiter help me work with some procedures, and if anyone else is interested on helping on that.
I think that schedule, though, in terms of priorities, that would be number one.
So we know what grants are out there.
Yeah. And then we'll can work on the procedure, if you will, later, but that schedule is.
So we've got time between now and our meeting in April to work on that. And then if we needed to have a special work session or something, we can certainly talk about that. But is that something to get together with you? And is anyone else interested in helping with
Well, it's
that?
always been something it's been on my priority list since I
Yeah.
joined 5 or 6 years ago, so I would be happy to
I
sit.
don't know anything about grants.
That's all
I'm
right.
working on
There's a
two
group-
right
there's a-
now, so I could at least give you the benefit of what I'm learning for those.
Well, we can
two
only have so
for
many
your
people on a
information.
committee.
We can have 2 or 3
Yeah.
outside for the open meetings. We can meet up to 3, or is it 2 now?
I think it's two.
This is 2, right?
Maximum of 2
Well, I don't know, it's a question.
That's a question. Procedural question.
for having a separate committee?
If we get together and we have coffee and we have a committee that's going, can the 3 of us get together, or is it?
I think it's 3. 'cause
Yeah, it
I
can't
think
be,
it's
it
three.
can't be
Can't
4
be
because it's a quorum.
Right, because 4 is a
So
quorum.
3 is what I understand.
Okay, so the 3 of us will get together, we'll set some time, and we'll talk about.
To bring
obvious-
to a work session,
Yeah,
or we could have a special meeting, but to bring it to the April, I won't be here anymore, but to bring to the next meeting.
and I can commit to doing some initial research. I've done some before. I can put some dates down on some ideas and things, and then we can have coffee or whatever and have a session and
Right.
talk about that.
Because
That's step 1. You're right.
The idea is to do the work outside so that we come to the work session and actually get something done.
And then for our grant library, if there was something at some point was to be created as a grant library, if we come up with a document, how would that end up on, say, the city website or whatever? Who would we work with? Who would be our go-to?
I would go with the clerk's office, and we can add things to the historic preservation webpage that's on the city website.
Yeah, I mean, we have a page right now that's related to our walking tour. It seems like, and then there's the page that leads you in there, the historic preservation page. Seems like that would be a perfect place to have resources and grants. And you just click there, it goes to the.
You could have a
page,
complete
but somebody will have to
section, yeah.
create that page, so, and that would be the city.
Seems to me like we're coming up with something that would be important for our priority to do that. So, any other discussion, just general discussion on grants? Like we always say, we're not doing a CLG grant, so whereas there's some places in here that say as a standard thing, even in our resolution, that says we're going to update on CLG grant. We have nothing to update. Our CLG grant is complete. So
Yeah.
we modify that to say, to work on this grant library would be what we would talk about.
Yeah, until we,
specifically.
if we decide we want to go after another CLG grant.
Exactly, but I will commit to finding research, to pulling back up that research on some of the dates and things that I had, including when the next CLG grant would be due. I need some help, if I could, on the process that we need to follow for public noticing of HP award nominations. And is this for, so you would remember, Commissioner Ward, that is it in May then for historic preservation? We would
Right.
award them when we award them?
Right, what we did on, if we're moving on to HP awards,
Please.
what we did was, I think it's in May, I have to look at this thing. Help me, but I think the awards come up during May, but because we have to have the nomination form, and then that has to go out for a certain period of time, then it comes back, and then we determine who's going to get the award, and it's awarded in May. So that's why, right now, we need to look at if the form needs to be updated, and usually the form is pretty standard. It's basically just changing any pertinent dates. And then we need to come up with a schedule. We could give it to Chris or to Director Saylor and say, it goes out on this date, it needs to be back this date, and then maybe we could appoint a couple of people to look them over and make recommendations, vote them in the April meeting, present in May.
Can we pick a date now by which we would send those out? And Deputy Clerk Peck, I don't have a copy of that form or what that form might look like. It didn't occur to me to ask for that to be included. Is that something we could potentially get at the break, or is that something that we can source? How can we see what that form looks like?
Brenda would know. I think Brenda would probably know.
I could print one off for you
Yeah.
during the break.
Okay.
And basically, I think the form isn't going to change much, we just have to change dates. And then the next step then would be to pick a schedule where it has to go out to the public. I don't know if there's rules about how we have to announce it, or it just goes out, but it could be put on the webpage or the Facebook page. And then it's due March 31st. Then you have the month of April to decide, and you give them out. And isn't May like, what?
That's a historic preservation.
Yeah, National
Month,
Historic
right?
Preservation. National Historic Preservation. I keep thinking Founder's Day, but no, that's August. But that's what it is. So it's presented sometime in May during National Preservation Month.
So if we say that we are actually making due by March 31st, so it's plenty of time.
Then you have the
But
month of
when-
April to decide on your awardees. The other thing, sorry to interrupt, but the other thing that was is we didn't get very many last time because our public notice wasn't perhaps what it should be, so we had to reissue it. So that gives us a little bit of time if we don't get response, because that gives us the month of April to at least maybe put it out for another week and some time so that it's ready to go in May. But I remember that we didn't get a lot of response.
I agree with that, I remember that. Is there a day when the city calendar comes out or something? I'd like to see if we put it out twice or
Yeah.
more. So is there a specific day it comes out, or does it come out several times?
Well, Brenda sends those out every Tuesday of each week, and then
Yeah.
they're published the following Wednesday
I've
in
actually
the
used those.
Journal.
So yeah, it's really just looking at the form, changing the dates, deciding when we want them due, and again, what you're talking about is getting it advertised.
I
So that-
can't see any reason why we wouldn't just, if we're running every week, we have ongoing things, say commissioner vacancies or anything like, can we just run we're
HP
looking for
awards,
HP
HP
awards from now
awards,
all the
HP.
way until March 31st. So if we could get a look, if we do look at it after the break, since we can vote and so on, can we just
Yep,
vote on what the dates are? And can we vote on the form
I would think so.
and just be done with that process and then start running it?
I don't see that anywhere on the official meeting agenda, though. Am I wrong?
Well, you're correct. So that would only mean, is there a rule why can we break for 5 minutes and print something off and get that done in this meeting then? But we have to vote.
We can't vote.
We can't vote. Do we need a vote to say that we don't need a vote on
You
this
don't need a
item?
vote. I mean, I could ask the city clerk if she could include it in the calendar next to the vacancy notice that's always in there.
Yeah.
If that's what you were
Is
looking
there a
for.
possibility we could take a little break in a little bit and just print off a copy of that and then look at it and say we bless it, change the dates on it and
It's simply
make
a
the
date
decision?
change, I think.
Yeah, would you like to take a recess and I
I'd
can go
love
print
to.
off some copies?
That'd be great.
Okay, so the work session will go on recess at 6:31 PM.
Thank you.
And when would we advertise those? Because I can put some
We would-
Facebook posts.
We would
Okay, we are back on the air at 6:38 PM.
All right, thank you very much. Continuing discussion of public noticing of HP award nominations. The Seward Historic Preservation Award nominations are done via a nomination form. We last year did this same process and extended it all the way till May 11th. We'd like to move that date back. Our next meeting is in April, and we'd like to propose a date of March 31st by which these nominations would be due. We're going to ask the city clerk's office to start posting in the weekly postings that we'd like to see nominations for Historic Preservation Award, with hopefully a hyperlink either to our webpage or to this form. To review this form a little bit, what we're looking for are nominees' contributions towards historic preservation in the community of Seward. There are several qualifications here on how you would actually be able to be considered for this award. And then we do have some notes on here on nominee, contact info, phone, email, and then someone needs to submit this. So this form would be available, and I don't know if it would be available on the city website, if it would be available on our page potentially, or just a hyperlink, or what that mechanics might be.
Yeah, we can definitely get that updated one on the city website. I think that version is on there right now.
Thank you. So I think that the only thing that would need to be, that would be changed would be this nomination form, or due
Yeah,
to city
and then-
clerk by, right? And top of it says 2022. So this would be the 2023 Seward Historic Preservation Award nomination form, with nomination forms due to the city clerk by March 31st, 2023. We would start noticing this as early as whatever clerk by you's next notifications go out. The weekly notifications, and please keep those on throughout so we can increase the nominations.
And I can create a Facebook post about it and try to get it, put it in each month.
Does that sound agreeable? I don't think that needs a vote or anything, that's just a direction to do that as well. And thank you for including as well this Seward Historic Preservation Award recipients. We see them here in this document that I'm holding in my hand from 2011 all the way through 2022. I'm wondering if this could also be included somehow, somewhere where people could see this.
And
So they
that's
can get an example.
two-sided as well. It goes back.
Oh, it goes back all the way to 1996. So could this be included somewhere, or is it included anywhere on our website?
I believe it is. That one is currently on the city website as well.
Okay, so if the hyperlink could send them to the nomination form, as well as who past recipients would be, that would be pretty cool.
Just a note, I see that you're on these awards, it's listing people if they've received the award for the second time, which Commissioner LeBrecq did this year, and his name does not say second time. So just a typo.
Thank you. Thank you. So, appreciate this. That looks good. I think we can move forward with that. And that will, discussing steps for public noticing, we're now in agreement for how that will work. The third item on this historic preservation work session packet is continued work on the downtown historic overlay. The reason I put that on, and again, while this is something we've worked on in the past, it is not something we're prepared to go into deep discussion today. I haven't prepared any of us to have that discussion, but I did ask Commissioner Ward if we could just briefly just address the fact that it is something that's important to us, and I think it's a charge of what we should be doing. We need to talk about the overlay. That's not something we're going to go deep into tonight, but I just want to keep it on the calendar. And again, sticking to what I showed everybody at the beginning here, this 2022, actually 23, Historic Preservation Commission meeting schedule. It's one of the things, and this all comes from the charges of the things that we're asked to do per state charter and per the city's charter to us of things they've asked us to do. And one of the things that we identify is that a historic overlay, historic business district, all those things are very important. So I just want to, if you have anything to say about that. I know I haven't prepped you for that.
No.
Or asked you to prepare anything.
No. I think we need, it's actually it's three, I had three sort of chapters. The first one was the guidelines, which we still need to get edited, and I'd like to give that, rather than edit by a committee, a single person, go ahead and edit it. We need to kind of figure out how we're going to do that, but that was not, we're not going to edit by committee. So do the guidelines so they're available for folks. I know that the Van Gilder is being asked to replace all the windows because they are not up to code or whatever. And so Elliot is willing to do that, and he wants to make it historically accurate. And I wish we had our guidelines ready to go, just to give him a little bit of advice on how to replace the windows and support his intent to make the Van Gilder, stay as historic as it possibly can. So the guidelines, and they just simply need editing, and then we need to come up with printing them so that it's available for people who want them. Okay, number 2 is I haven't given up on designating downtown, because I think that there's money available that we can funnel through to the business owners if downtown is designated as historic. That was but what we failed to do, and I would say as a commission, we failed to educate people. We failed to let people know why we were trying to get this done, that it was really if you own a historic building in the designated area, that it is in your interest and we can funnel grants to you. But without that designation, so we've got an education component to be done prior to requesting, again, the historic overlay for us, particularly downtown. We had people that wanted us to do a much bigger scale, but we've just really narrowed it to the business. But it is a financial concern so that we can preserve the buildings that are left in downtown. And then the third thing was the grants, which we've already worked on. Those were the 3 things that I thought we could put in place as a commission. So, it's guidelines. What is it? What is a historic building and what does it entail? And here's some options. Designate historic districts so that we can funnel those grant monies to business owners. And 3, identify grants and a grant schedule. So, that's all part of not just the downtown historic overlay, but it's a 3-pronged project on how to better serve Seward and her historic buildings, because Seward has some really brilliant historic buildings that are at risk. So
Agreed.
that's all. That'll still be floating around out there, but we will get it done.
Thank you for that. So, and I really like, so this again sticks to when you look at our calendar and you look at the business we're discussing tonight, and the purpose is to enhance and educate on historic preservation. I think you just hit the nail on the head, and that's it. We've got to explain to people that, to our community, we're not here to be in the way. We're not here to be a barrier. We're not here to say you can't do this or you can't do that. We're here to say we have a great, rich history here, and you may have a great and really cool building or a really cool site that has some historic significance. We have people here who either have the knowledge or are willing to come help find the knowledge or help you find the grants, or to help you so that you can not only achieve your own personal goals, but you can also do things that are in the best interest of the citizens of Seward. We're not here to stand in the way or to create an economic hardship. And I think that sometimes that might have been misunderstood. The real way that you can see that is even when you just look at educating people on what it means to be a historic building, a National Register property. People think, well, if I do that, I can't touch anything. That's not actually true. There are certain things that you must abide by to get the funding that you need to be able to achieve what you want, but it's not as complicated or as prohibitive as a lot of people think. And so that's where part of our charter is to educate and to promote and to preserve. And I think that that's what we're talking about, and that's where the overlay and those 3 parts that you're talking about would all make sense. So, any other general discussion?
I'm making notes to put on the Facebook post to cover some of those things you talked about, so we get those ideas out there.
Again, I'll repeat it. I don't think we've done our homework in terms of educating people. I think there is a lot of misinformation, and it's up to us to correct that. And so, yeah, thanks you, Marianne. That would be great. Anything we can put out there. And to encourage people, when they have a historic building, to start looking at what that means and how you can, I already told people I don't want downtown to look like Disneyland. That's not the point. The point is preserve it right where it is. What do we have, And I do miss John French. He had a whole presentation on heritage tourism and heritage economics. And I think that might be something down the road if someone has an interest to look at heritage tourism, because it is big business. It is big business in places in the lower 48, and I believe one of the reasons people from Anchorage come to Seward is because of the small town feel and because of the historic buildings. And so it brings people into our town. They want to shop at Brown and Hopkins. They want to shop at Urbox. That's where they want to shop. They don't want to shop at Target. They don't want to shop at Walmart.
No, I think our walking tour was a big step
It's
towards
huge.
increasing the historic tourism, and that was a big project that the commission worked on, that now you have those permanent signs that are directing people to all those locations and bringing interest, so thank you for.
And I was just going to say it, Marianne, you might want to speak to it, but we're looking at an audio tour.
Yes. Is that a time to?
Well, we're
say
discussing the
something?
overlay and the walking people, so I think you could probably just, real briefly.
I was going to discuss it during comments based on what Bailey said, unless we can discuss it now.
As far as I know, it has to be per topic, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's on part of the historic overlay. It's part of the walking tour. It's all part of this discussion. There's no vote. It's just simply reporting that we're simply taking the signs and putting them audio. That's it, reported.
I'll leave it up to you to say yes or no, and then, or you want to.
I would leave it for comments, and then we can update in the comments and let them know. That way we're not getting ourselves either in a gray area or out of line.
Okay.
I'll definitely bring it up in the comments.
Well, I just consider it part of the downtown historic discussion. The overlay, it's all part of the three parts. So, oh well.
I think we've hit 1, 2, and 3, so where do we go from here? Or can comments be made now, or comments only in the general meeting?
There's no comments
No,
per se in the
we're
work
done.
session.
You could close
So we're
out.
done. All right, then I think, unless, does anyone else have anything else to add? All right, then it is, what, 6:50? 7:50?
6:50.
Closing the meeting, the work session at 6:50 PM. Thank you very much.